I am always delighted to share the wisdom of our ecclesiastical core here to guide us in a reading in our monthly affirmation, which she wrote this month, and also to guide us in prayer. Would you please welcome today's prayer chaplain, Sandy Solomon?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, good morning. Oh, all you magnificent lights out there. You're just so beautiful. Thank you. You know, this morning I would like to share something with you that happened in my life. And the first thing I want to share, though, is something from the Dalai Lama, because great inspiration for me in the Dalai Lama. And he's often asked, what is your religion? And you would think, being a Buddhist, it would be some insight, right, on the Four Noble Truths or something like that. And he doesn't say that. He says kindness. Kindness is his religion. So my sweet life partner had a knee replacement this month. And he's doing great. He's doing great. It was me that wasn't doing so well. I'm not a very good nurse. That's just not my great strength, right? And so I took our affirmation for this month as my goal. And our affirmation is, in all situations, I choose kindness. All situations. Did you hear the all? Oh my goodness, who wrote this? I do not know. So one morning we had to get to PT, physical therapy. He took the stockings off the night before, so here we're doing the compressed stockings and we're doing all this stuff, and I'm not doing very well. And then I pick up this huge jug of water in the kitchen that I forgot to screw on the top, and I was going to pour it, in my smaller bottle of water. And I picked it up, and the top came off, and the water went all over every place, and then it fell out of my hand, and then it went every place. And in that moment, I said, I cannot do this. It is too hard. And then I looked at him and said, I have to get out of here, which meant I ran out on the patio and slammed the door. Well, you know, at least you can give me points for being dramatic. And so there I am, standing on the patio, going, oh my goodness, I have so not been the picture of kindness. Oh my goodness. And you know, in that moment, you just start feeling worse and worse. And then this thought came to me, stop doing this, because you are digging yourself in a hole, and then you're going to have to climb out of it. And what came to me was our mission statement. Those mission statements that we said this morning. Now, the first one is what? Love only. Yeah, well, you can forget that. I was not loving. So let's go on. We don't need to do that one. Okay, so what's the next one? Forgive everything. Forgive everything. And right then it came to me, I cannot be outside of God. God is infinite. Now, maybe the choices I had made in the kitchen were not the best. I admit that. But I am not lost. I am not forsaken. Not for one moment. And in that moment, I could feel that forgiveness. That forgiveness for myself. And then the love, which is love only. Yeah, I could start loving myself, this deep love. And then that last statement is, remember who you are. Remember who I am. And in that moment, I knew I am kindness. And that kindness was just flowing through and as me. And you know, in that moment, I gave myself a hug. Just gave myself a hug. And I could turn around and walk back in centered and look at my partner and say, I'm sorry. Yeah, That's huge for me, because usually I like to blame somebody else, right? If you hadn't been having this leg issue, I wouldn't have acted this way. Yeah. No, 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 no. Full responsibility. I'm sorry. And you know what he did? He looked at me with that big smile of his, and he said, "Oh, you don't need to say you're sorry. I thought we were coming up with a new way to clean the kitchen." Yeah. And we could step in to having a glorious, glorious day. So with all of this affirmation talking, why don't we work with our affirmation? So I'm going to go ahead and say it one time for us, and then I'm just going to invite all of us to say it together twice. All right? So just relax, take a breath. In all situations, I choose kindness. And together, in all situations, I choose kindness. Again, in all situations, I choose kindness.
You got to try a little kindness. Try a little kindness. And just shine your light for everyone to see. It's been a big topic of what we've been talking about all month, right? Yeah, and I'm deeply grateful. Now, one of the things that no, I got to keep these on, and you'll understand why. One of the things that happens occasionally is there is a fifth Sunday in the month. And, sometimes on the fifth Sunday, I do something a little different. Now, did anyone, actually, I do know that some people were asking about what the talk title meant. So if you got the email or you saw our post on Facebook, you may have said, "What the heck does this mean? Lorem Ipsum." And there are people I know out here who know what Lorem Ipsum means. I know that there are people out here who know what it means. Lorem Ipsum is actually a standardized placeholder. It's what we call the standardized placeholder for text that is used in printing and publishing in those industries as well as in web design. So there's this standard fake Latin that is just laid out, and you can go and find it on the internet, and you can copy it and then paste it into your design documents as you're creating those design documents if you don't have the actual text that's going to go into those places yet. So Lorem Ipsum is what is there to hold the place for the meaningful content to be input later. So today's talk title was a placeholder for the meaningful input that is now going to be, expressed here in this moment. But he still hasn't talked about what he's going to talk about, and I'll tell you why. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. You're going to help me determine that. You may have noticed that there are 5 bags here sitting on the edge of the platform. If we were to go from your left, because I have to turn it around in my mind, from your left to your right, we're going to count these bags. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Would somebody please give me a number between 1 and 5? 3 is the first number I heard. I heard 3. What is behind door number 3? Behind door number 3 is the book Divine Audacity by Linda Martella Whitsett. Now, I want to be really clear. This is not five divine audacities. They're spiritual economics, the 5 principles, the science of mind, and the power of decision. Just so you think I'm not trying to pull a fast one on you. Okay, so if I go here, there are 200 of stuff that's actually relevant. Well, clearly I'm going to page 157 because that's what got yelled out just in this moment. 157. I'm going to read it. So on this page is a meditation for strength. Now, divine audacity is basically a work through of the 12 faculties of man and God. The 12 powers are how they're often referred to. One of them is strength. And so Linda Martella-Whitsett has written this meditation for strength. So I'm going to read this paragraph. Because there's bullet points below it, so there's really only one paragraph to go to. She writes this: when ready, I affirm, divine strength is my spiritual name and nature. I am strong, stable, and steadfast in body, mind, and spirit. I am the power of standability anchored to the shore while the winds of change swirl around me. I am centered in truth during times of instability. I am rooted to God, my source of strength. By spiritual strength, I am confident, courageous, and determined, faithful to the truth I know. I am responsive from my position of spiritual strength. I claim these divine attributes, trusting they are part of the intelligence within the very cells of my body and throughout every dimension of my being. I appreciate my limitless power to stay strong in all circumstances. I am spiritual strength, stable, courageous, and tenacious. How many of us, in the experience of our lives, maybe sometimes have challenges with feeling the spiritual strength, feeling like somehow this idea of God feels so separate sometimes that we are going through our lives and we, see things falling apart all around us. And it feels hard to stay strong in those periods. Anyone on this with me? Because it happens for me, and clearly not for about 90% of you. Okay. One of the fundamental factors of your beingness is spiritual strength. One of the fundamental factors of your beingness is spiritual strength. There is nothing that is expressing through you that is not rooted in spiritual strength. What if that is the way we chose to approach every aspect of our beingness? Every interaction of our beingness was rooted in the knowledge of our innate spiritual strength. It would make life a lot easier, I think. I don't really I try not to bring up the kind of tone of our entire world right now too much. But a lot of people are coming to me with real challenges about what's happening, not just in this country, but in the world. That everything seems to be challenge and as though it is falling apart. And what I try to remember when I'm faced with those ideas is that I am the point at which spiritual strength is being expressed. And there is nothing in the world of form, there's nothing in the world of circumstance, there's absolutely nothing out there that can knock me off of my spiritual path, that can knock me off of what is mine to do and to be from the point of view of a divine identity. That divine identity is rooted in the construct of spiritual strength. And so right where I am, I will quote, some of these things I do have committed to memory. I will quote one of my favorite sentences from The Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes. And y'all be like, oh, he's saying this again. Yes, I am. One alone in consciousness with the infinite constitutes a complete majority. One alone in consciousness with the infinite constitutes a complete majority. You are the full expression of infinite divine strength and power. Are you ready to accept that in your heart to such a degree that nothing out there can knock you over from that path and that understanding? So what this means, too, is that if the world seems to be falling apart all around you, you are not adversely affected by that except to the degree that you allow yourself to be adversely affected by that. That is a choice that we all get to make. You are the expression of the impression of strength upon itself. That's the truth. When ready, I affirm, divine strength is my spiritual name and nature. Can you remember that? Divine strength is my spiritual name and nature. Let's say that together. Divine strength is my spiritual name and nature. That is the truth of your being. That is the truth of your being. And so how will you choose to walk forth today? You can shine your light to such a degree that you are allowing others to see that light and know that they can shine that light themselves as well. When the world seems to be falling apart all around us, when our lives, anyone of us ever have personal things in our lives that seem to fall apart? And the other 90% of you? When our lives seem to be falling apart, you know how I understand this paradigm to be in the world of form? When our lives are falling apart, when my life is falling apart, and I've had experiences where my life has been falling apart. When my life feels like it is falling apart, here's what I know. It is because the limitations that I have put into place can no longer contain the God essence at my core, so they must fall away and something new can be expressed. What if we approached the idea that things falling apart were rooted in that construct, in that understanding, that they must fall away so that something new can be born? Because here's the nature of the divine. It is constantly evolving itself in its expression by means of all creation, and that is inclusive of each and every one of us. That's what I hold to be true in my own heart. And so that is a point of view that allows me to stand firm in the consciousness of infinite strength, of infinite divine strength, which is my strength. It is your strength. It is the strength at the core of our hearts. Affirm with me, I am strong. I am strong. I am stable. I am stable. I am steadfast in body, mind, and spirit. I am steadfast in body, mind, and spirit. Check in for a moment. As we state these affirmations out loud, just check in and see what's happening with that little voice back there. What's happening with that little voice back there? Is that little voice in the back of our mind affirming these things and allowing ourselves to understand that that is the equality that we have, the equity we have in our own mind, of our own understanding of self? Or is it saying, as I say these affirmations, I am strong. No, you're not. I am stable. I'll watch you fall down. I am no, that's the wrong voice. I am steadfast in body, mind, and spirit. Yeah, we'll see. The thing to address whenever those voices come up, that voice comes up in the back of your mind that seems contrary to the affirmations we speak, that's what needs to be addressed. This is an invitation to never go into the direction of spiritual bypass, because it's real easy to go into spiritual bypass. Spiritual bypass is simply using all the right words but not meaning them. That's really what spiritual bypass is. I am steadfast and strong and ready. No, you're not, but I really am. No, you're not, but I really am. And everything's still falling apart around. The truth of the matter is you are steadfast. You are strength, because strength is an innate nature that is part of who you are. There is no aspect of your beingness that cannot move forth with strength and with determination and conviction in this life to be the change you wish to see in this world. Are you ready to step forth and be that change? Really? And the rest of you? I am centered in truth during times of instability. I am rooted to, now she wrote here, I am rooted to God, my source of strength. I would change that language personally. I would say I am rooted as God, my source of strength. Because while we are not the wholeness of God, the wholeness of us is God. There is no aspect of our physical expression, our energetic expression. There is no aspect of us which is not wholly divine, because we cannot be separate from the infinite. That is how I trust and know that the faculty of strength is present within each and every one of us. And so, amen. And so let us not allow ourselves to move forth feeling defeated or deflated. That's not worth it. That's not worth it in my life. I spent too much of my life feeling defeated and deflated. Did you feel that when that water thing? Oh, yeah. Right? Yeah. It's hard. It's hard. You know what? This life, it's hard. As long as I decide it's hard. And that's the thing. Thank you for mentioning that. Because I have really taken to heart in my ministry that I have a global intention that is to narrow the gap. And what I mean by that is that we have human experiences. Anyone have human experiences? And there is a divine understanding at the core of all those human experiences, but sometimes it takes us a while to go from the human experience to the revelation of the divine aspect at the core of it. And on that journey, we are working to convince ourselves of this truth until we embody this truth. And what happens is eventually those two things do meet. Now, when I say I'm here to narrow the gap, what I mean is I am narrowing the gap from the experience to the revelation so that they become one and the same thing. Rather than I have the experience and now I'm going to go on this long protracted journey from this point to 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 convince myself of my spiritual strength. What I am here to do is to realize that in the face of all experiences, whether I call them constructive or destructive, in the face of all experiences, I am spiritual strength, and that is how my life continues to unfold and flow. Are you ready to do that? We get to walk away from this place here today into the next experience and expression of our lives. And it's great to hear the words of the minister on the stage on a Sunday as he tells you how good things are in this life, right? But what do you do when you walk through those double doors at the back? Do you forget everything that I've said? My desire is that we are moving through life with these ideas so thoroughly embedded in our heart space that we cannot help but move through life with no gap. With no gap. Because every experience that we have, we realize and recognize as a divine experience. And we let go of the notion of calling them good or bad. We just recognize them for what they are, experiences. And if we can acknowledge and know that our experiences are divine, then our experiences begin to lighten. We find less challenge in life. At the root of all discord is one idea. At the root of all discord in experience is one idea. The idea that we are somehow separate from the divine. To believe that we are separate from is what leads us to discordant experiences. Because how can discord be part of our life or our experience when we know the truth of our being, when we remember who we are? When we remember who we are empowered in that moment to step forth into the understanding that there is nothing that needs to be forgiven, which is actually the expression of forgive everything. Because in the absolute, there's nothing to be forgiven, only that to be opened up as divine awareness. And then we live our lives from the point of view of love only. Every interaction becomes an interaction of love. Every interaction. We begin to walk through life. As I said this morning, when I first acknowledged and said hello from this platform this morning, I looked out and I acknowledged that I'm seeing the faces of the divine. And every single face that I see the face of God. That is a choice that I have made to understand that irrespective of someone's station in society, of the way that they have been in their life, doesn't matter. None of it matters because all I see is divinity expressed. That also becomes a great equalizer for me. Because when I know the truth of my being, when I choose to understand my divine identity, and I choose to understand it about every single person I encounter, then there can be no hierarchy. There is only God expressing beautifully and magnificently. And so as I go about my life, I let go of the notion of separation more and more and more and more. This is how I choose to live my life. And I want to be really clear. It's a choice. I could just as easily choose something else. And maybe at the time in my life, before I understood the nature of spiritual principle, I might have been choosing those other ideas. But I choose not to any longer. I choose to allow myself to step forth knowing that I am the absolute expression of the impression of spiritual strength upon itself. I choose to be strength. I choose to be magnificence embodied. I choose to be divinely audacious in that understanding. I am responsive from my position of spiritual strength. I claim these divine attributes, trusting they are a part of the intelligence within the very cells of my body and throughout every dimension of my being. There is no aspect of any one of us that is not holy, divine, and strong. I appreciate my limitless power to stay strong in all circumstances. That's an unconditional statement. All circumstances, right? All circumstances. I am spiritual strength, stable, courageous, and tenacious. That is the truth of my being. That is the truth of the beingness of each and every one of us. And that is what I celebrate here and now today. This message is no longer a placeholder. Peace and blessings. So our final home practice of this month, I thought because it's the fifth Sunday, I might give you a little spring break, but then I decided not to. At the end of each day this week, write down one act of kindness you offered, big or small, because there is no great and no small to the soul that maketh all, remember. There is no big or small in God. So you may determine it's big or small, but write down one act of kindness that you offered that day. And also write down one act of kindness you received during the day. Let yourself acknowledge these 14 statements by this time next week and see how that works for you.